They say time heals everything. But what if time only makes the wound deeper? October 14th, 2000. A 21-year-old student full of life, full of plans, walked a short 15-minute distance through her own community and was never seen again. No screams reported. No break-in. No camera footage. Not even a single call for help. One moment she was there alive, warm, laughing, promising her coworker she'd see him next week. The next, she was a missing poster slapped onto street poles like a discarded memory. For 19 years, her family woke up every morning wondering, is today the day we find her? Is she suffering somewhere? Did someone who walks free know exactly what they did? That kind of agony, it doesn't fade. It festers. Charleston, West Virginia wasn't prepared for a nightmare like this. People trusted their neighbors. They walked the same sidewalks. They worked the same jobs. They lived believing danger had a face. But the man responsible? He didn't need a mask. He already looked ordinary enough to walk right past you. A story like this forces every one of us to confront a chilling truth. You can know a place your entire life and still have no clue who's watching you walk home at night. Before we continue, you tell me, where are you watching from? Type the name of your city or country in the comments. And if you follow stories like this, true stories that remind us how quickly everything can be taken like this video, subscribe, turn on notifications, and share it with someone who needs to stay alert too. Before we continue, if you're a fan of true crime and cold case investigations, you won't want to miss our new book, 50 Cold Cases Solved. 50 real stories of the world's most notorious cases where time almost erased the truth until one clue changed everything. Now available for instant digital download. You'll find the link in the video description and in a pinned comment. Now, let's dive into today's case. Her name was Nicole Summers. Not a statistic. Not a case number. Not a mystery to entertain strangers. She was a daughter who called her mom every day. A friend who remembered every birthday. A young woman who believed life was finally beginning to reward her hard work. She wanted to design things that made the world feel warmer. She wanted to write stories that made people feel something. She wanted to live long enough to understand what real love looked like. But someone, a stranger hiding in plain sight, looked at her dreams and decided they didn't matter. One moment, Nicole was laughing behind the counter at her part-time job at the Daily Grind, a place where regulars knew her by name, a place she rushed through homework to keep. That night, she told a coworker she'd be right back next shift. She even promised to cover his hours the next weekend. That's the thing about tragedy. It doesn't warn you. It doesn't give you time to say goodbye. Her parents heard nothing. No desperate knock on the door. No late-night call begging for help. Just silence. The kind of silence that buries itself into every wall of a home and refuses to leave. That night, Nicole's life was stolen, and the person responsible went to sleep like nothing happened. But here's the part that should make every viewer angry. He stayed free for almost 2 decades, walking among good people, pretending to be one of them. The truth of what he did and how he hid will make you question how well you really know your own community. And stay close, because soon you'll learn the detail that shattered every assumption the police made that night. News spread fast, too fast for Nicole's family to fully process reality. Posters with her bright smile were stapled to every grocery entrance, gas station door, cafe window. Students hung flyers on campus bulletin boards, their hands shaking with a fear they couldn't quite name. People who barely knew Nicole suddenly realized, this could have been any of us. Parents kept their porch lights burning long past midnight. Teenagers weren't allowed to walk alone anymore. Every stranger's face became a quiet question. Do you know something? Charleston had always felt small enough to protect its own. But this crime ripped that comfort out from under everyone. Her mother, Celeste, barely slept. She spent nights sitting on the living room floor staring at the phone, waiting, hoping, dreading. Her father, Arthur, blamed himself, even though he had nothing to blame. Every morning he'd open the front door before the sun rose, just in case his daughter was trying to find her way home. Pain like that doesn't just sit heavy in a house. It haunts the air. Police searched for days, then weeks, but every lead turned into a dead-end road. Eyes that once looked toward the future were now glued to the past, begging for even one small clue that Nicole wasn't gone forever. This wasn't just a disappearance. It was the theft of a life and the theft of certainty. People pleaded for answers, but all they got was nothing. Months passed, and the city's once loud cries for justice slipped into a quiet question that no one wanted to speak aloud. What if we never know the truth? Hold on to that thought, because the moment hope seemed completely gone, a chilling discovery reminded everyone that evil can wait and patience can be deadly. For a while, people convinced themselves Nicole might still come home. Maybe she was lost. Maybe she ran from something none of them knew about. People cling to any story that hurts less than the truth. But winter arrived. Snow buried every poster, every hope, every mile that was searched. Silence returned, and this time it felt permanent. Years passed. Detectives retired. Witnesses moved away. Nicole's case file collected dust, thousands of pages that led nowhere. Yet in one small house, the Summers family refused to give up. Celeste kept Nicole's room exactly the way it was the day she vanished. Clothes folded, sketchbook open, a half-drunk cup of tea still sitting on the shelf, as if Nicole would walk in any second and apologize for staying out too late. Arthur kept his phone charged every night even though it never rang. They waited, because giving up meant letting the person who took their daughter win. And whoever he was, he had no idea what was coming, because while that monster spent 19 years pretending to be normal, science evolved, technology improved, and a new generation of investigators refused to let Nicole's story fade into history. A forgotten fingerprint, a tiny fiber, a ghost of evidence left behind by a man who thought time would protect him. That was all it took to bring the truth screaming back to life. Stay with us. Because the moment that fingerprint lit up a computer screen, everything changed. That night Nicole took a 15-minute walk. She never made it home. Charleston, West Virginia, the kind of place where routine felt like a warm blanket. People waved at strangers without thinking twice. Kids raced bicycles down streets parents never worried about. Doors stayed unlocked because danger was considered something that happened somewhere else. Weekends were for high school football. Weekdays were filled with the same familiar faces: the cashier who remembered how you liked your coffee, the neighbor who always borrowed tools but brought them back with a pie. Life here wasn't exciting, but it was steady, predictable, safe, or so they believed. Nicole Summers fit into that world perfectly. She wasn't chasing fame or fortune, she wanted meaning. She sketched on napkins during study breaks. She collected postcards even from towns only 30 miles away. She saw beauty in details most people walked past without noticing. Nicole wasn't the type to make enemies. People gravitated toward her kindness, not because she tried to impress anyone, but because she listened. Her friends said she had a gift. She made you feel like your voice mattered. She planned to graduate, find a design job, maybe travel a bit, nothing wild. Just a future worth waking up for. She spent evenings at the University of Charleston library, chasing deadlines and caffeine. She wore the same backpack she'd had since high school, patched up with little thread hearts she stitched herself. Nicole believed the world was good. That belief cost her everything. Let me ask you something, and answer honestly. Would you ever expect danger on a simple walk home? Drop your answer in the comments. Your voice matters here. Because what happened in Charleston wasn't random. It wasn't a lightning strike. It was the kind of crime that thrives in places where trust comes easy, and evil knows exactly how to hide. Nicole wasn't just living life, she was building one. Every day she carried a sketchbook covered in stickers from places she hoped to visit one day. Italy, New Mexico, Japan, places that felt far away but never impossible. She planned to design children's books pages filled with color, imagination, and characters who brought comfort to kids who felt alone. She wanted to spread warmth in a world that can be unbelievably cold. Her professors admired her dedication. Her classmates relied on her honesty. Her family believed she was destined to leave her mark on the world, and she would have. She loved small things that made life feel big. The first sip of hot chocolate on a freezing morning, handwritten notes tucked into textbooks, sunsets over the Kanawha River, where the sky looked like it was painted with care. That riverbank became one of her favorite places, a quiet reminder that even ordinary days can feel like miracles. Nicole was careful. She knew danger existed, just not here. Not in a town that felt like a giant extended family. She would lock her window. She'd text her mom when she arrived at school. She'd double-check that she had her keys. She trusted the world enough to let herself feel safe. That's the tragedy. She did everything right. She wasn't reckless. She wasn't naive. She simply believed she would make it home. Because why wouldn't she? Charleston taught people to trust familiar streets. Nicole walked those streets with a heart full of hope, never realizing she wasn't the only one walking. Someone else was out there that night. Someone who watched. Someone who noticed opportunity instead of innocence. Someone who didn't care about the life Nicole was creating, only that he could take it from her. Charleston moved at a calm pace. You could walk the same route 1,000 times and never once feel the slightest hint of fear. That's why Nicole didn't hesitate when she stepped out of her workplace that night. The streetlights glowed like trusted companions. The sidewalks were dotted with familiar faces heading home from late shifts or weekend plans. Nothing about that evening screamed disaster. But evil doesn't need a scream. Sometimes it waits. Silent. Patient. Choosing the exact second someone feels safest. Nicole wasn't followed by a shadow creeping through the dark. She wasn't hunted by a face her instincts warned her about. What makes her story so terrifying is this. Her kidnapper already blended into her world. A man who walked those same roads, who held jobs in buildings she studied in. Someone the community barely noticed. That's how tragedies like this begin, not with monsters that look like monsters, but with people who look like everyone else. Nicole's last walk was filled with everyday thoughts. Assignments due. Plans for tomorrow. What to bring for lunch on Monday. Her mind was on the future. Unaware someone had already decided she wouldn't have one. This case changed Charleston forever because it proved a painful truth. You never truly know who is watching. You never truly know who is waiting. You never truly know how much danger can hide behind a harmless smile. Nicole trusted her neighborhood. Her community trusted itself. None of them knew trust can be the very thing that destroys you. October 14th, 2000 started like any other day for Nicole Summers. The daily grind, the coffee shop where she worked weekends, buzzed with regulars and familiar laughter. Nicole poured drinks with the same cheerful energy she always did, turning simple orders into small moments of connection. Her co-worker, Xavier Jones, remembered that day clearly. Painfully clearly. They joked about upcoming midterms. He complained about an early morning shift, and Nicole teased him for always running late. Nothing felt unusual. Nothing felt off. Around 6:55 p.m., Nicole clocked out. She swung her backpack over her shoulder, tying her hair up as she headed for the door. The evening air outside was crisp, the sky just starting to dim, the kind of night where the walk home felt refreshing, not risky. Before leaving, she paused to tell Xavier they could swap shifts the following week, a simple promise that meant she planned on being very much alive to keep it. He remembers watching her step into the night with confidence. No hesitation. No fear. That was the last time anyone outside her family saw Nicole alive. It's chilling how ordinary that moment was. A goodbye with no meaning, until it became the final chapter of a life taken far too soon. Nicole believed she would reach the university library in 15 minutes, a routine she'd done countless times, but someone else had already decided she wouldn't reach it at all. When Xavier locked up a few hours later, he thought Nicole was home studying, not fighting for her life. Small choices. Small moments. That's all it takes to change everything. Nicole stepped into the night with the same calmness she'd always felt walking through Charleston. The route between the daily grind and the University of Charleston was short, familiar, and traveled constantly by students. She walked along Kanawha Boulevard, streetlights glowing above her, traffic rolling by in a steady rhythm. Nothing about her surroundings suggested danger. This was her home. 10 minutes into the walk, she reached the student parking lot where she usually left her car. Her silver sedan was right where she parked it earlier. But instead of getting in, she kept walking toward the library, determined to finish assignments before the new week began. That's what makes this so disturbing. Her routine never changed. The streets never changed. Only one thing changed that night. Someone else showed up. Nicole would have passed apartment buildings, the quiet stretch near the river, and a small gas station, the only location with a camera. But in the year 2000, cameras recorded with terrible quality. Movement blurred. Faces became shadows. Whatever happened to Nicole, happened in that small gap where visibility failed and trust blinded the community. When she didn't arrive home after her study session should have ended, no alarm sounded. It wasn't unusual for a busy student to lose track of time, but while her parents waited for her usual call, hours slipped away that can't ever be recovered. Nicole didn't speed up to avoid anybody. She didn't check over her shoulder. She didn't know she was being watched. Her innocence wasn't stupidity. It was confidence in a place she believed would protect her. A place that failed. Charleston slept peacefully that night. Except for one family who would soon discover peace was gone forever. 9 p.m. Nicole's parents expected her usual check, in a short message, a quick, "I'm home," or even a joke about a classmate. She never forgot. 10 p.m. Her mother, Celeste, walked past the phone again and again, waiting for a sound that never came. 10:30 p.m. Concern turned into a feeling she couldn't ignore anymore. She called Nicole. No answer. Arthur tried to stay calm. He told himself there had to be a good reason. A study group. A late project. A dead phone battery. But deep down, a terrible fear began to take shape, a fear no parent ever wants to feel. 11:15 p.m. They called again. Then again. Each ring felt louder, colder, more threatening. Midnight came. No texts. No voicemail. No sign she existed past 7 p.m. The Summers family got in their car and drove to the university. Every red light felt like punishment. Every empty sidewalk felt like a warning. When they arrived, Nicole's car was still in the parking lot untouched, waiting, as if trapped in time. But Nicole wasn't there. That moment shattered their world. It wasn't an argument. It wasn't a misunderstanding. Something was wrong. Terribly wrong. Pause for a moment and ask yourself, where do you think the first mistake happened? Was it the walk? Was it the trust? Was it believing danger always announces itself? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective matters in stories like this. What the Summers family didn't know yet was that the clock had already run out. The parking lot behind the University of Charleston sat quiet under flickering lamps when the Summers family arrived that night. The first thing Celeste noticed was Nicole's car, her small silver sedan parked neatly in its usual spot, the driver's seat pushed forward exactly how Nicole preferred it. The doors were locked. The keys were nowhere to be found. Her books were gone, but her bag wasn't with her. Nothing was damaged, nothing stolen. It looked as though Nicole had parked, stepped away for a moment, and vanished. Arthur pressed his palm against the cold metal, whispering her name as if the car might somehow answer back. When officers arrived, they treated it as a missing person case routine at first. Young adults sometimes stayed out. They sometimes needed space, but not Nicole. She wasn't impulsive. She wasn't the type to leave without calling. Her parents said it over and over. She would have told us. The officers ran her plates. Everything checked out. No sign of forced entry, no notes, no messages, no witnesses. The city was still asleep, while the Summers family began living a nightmare that would stretch for years. By sunrise, the lot was cordoned off with tape, the first of many false comforts. Police flashlights swept over empty asphalt, like searching eyes, but they found nothing. Nicole's car stood as the only piece of truth they had. It was proof she'd been there. It was proof she didn't leave by choice. And as dawn broke over Charleston, one question echoed louder than the morning birds. How does someone disappear in a city full of eyes? Later that morning, officers accompanied the Summers family back to Nicole's apartment. If she had left willingly, they would see traces of it. Packed bags, missing clothing, a note, something. But the moment Celeste opened the door, her heart dropped. Everything was untouched. Nicole's jacket hung on the hook by the door, the one she always wore on chilly nights. Her wallet rested on her bedside table, driver's license still tucked in place, cash untouched, bank card untouched. Nothing planned, nothing hidden. On her desk sat an open textbook, a pen carefully placed inside like she was only stepping away for a second. Her shoes lined up neatly, laundry sorted, future waiting. Her roommate, Phoebe Wells, insisted Nicole would never walk off without her essentials. She described Nicole's habits, always communicating, always cautious. Police checked her computer. Nothing unusual, no messages indicating panic or escape, no late-night purchases, no airplane tickets. Every piece of evidence spoke a single chilling truth. Nicole didn't leave her life. Someone took her from it. Detective Elias Vance arrived that afternoon, a man known for refusing to ignore small details. His arrival wasn't dramatic. No raised voices, no grand statements. He simply studied the room, then asked the question no parent wants to hear. Has anyone acted strangely around her recently? Phoebe remembered one thing: a man claiming to be a maintenance worker who had knocked on their apartment door the day before Nicole vanished. The uniform looked oversized. His explanation sounded rehearsed. Nicole didn't trust him and sent him away. That memory, that brief encounter, would become the first terrifying thread of this case. But in 2000, a thread wasn't enough to pull a monster into the light. Detective Elias Vance immediately recognized something chilling. Nicole's disappearance wasn't spontaneous. It was fast, precise, purposeful. By the afternoon of October 15th, Charleston transformed into a community on alert. Volunteers gathered at the university parking lot. Students held flashlights with trembling hands. Strangers walked shoulder to shoulder through parks and alleyways they once trusted. Police cars rolled slowly through neighborhoods where sirens usually meant nothing more than a traffic stop. Now every sound felt threatening. Detective Vance ordered a ground sweep of the entire path between the cafe and the library. Officers marked the map: every stretch of sidewalk, every corner where streetlights flickered, every place a person could be dragged without making a sound. Canine units sniffed along the riverbanks. Helicopters hovered above wooded areas. Divers were sent into murky waters, not searching for a runaway, but for a victim. Vance studied patterns, distances, timing. Nicole's walk should have been simple, straightforward, safe. Yet somewhere inside that small route, she was swallowed by the dark. Every lead collapsed within hours. Every search ended with more questions, and still people refused to stop looking. The Summers family begged for information. TV reporters stood outside police lines. The entire city held its breath. But every time Vance pressed forward with a promising clue, it dissolved into nothing. As each hour passed, the fear grew sharper. If she were alive, wouldn't someone have seen her by now? Charleston felt smaller than ever, and somehow more dangerous than anyone could comprehend. Day turned into night. Night turned into a blur of frightened hours. Still nothing. Detective Vance pushed his team harder, refusing to accept that a young woman could simply vanish without leaving a single trace behind. Every locked dumpster was forced open, every drainage tunnel checked, every patch of woods combed through with flashlights, slicing through the dark like desperate hope. But Charleston wasn't giving up its answers. Every person who walked that area was questioned. Regulars at the cafe, joggers who ran by the river, students leaving weekend parties. No one saw Nicole. No one saw anything. It didn't make sense. People don't evaporate. People don't disappear without noise or struggle. Not in a city full of cars, footsteps, and watchers. So how did this happen to Nicole? Vance stood in the parking lot again late that night, staring at her car, the one thing rooted in truth. He circled it slowly, hand tracing the door's edge, searching for scratches or dents or even a reason. Nothing. It looked almost cruel, like the car was waiting for her to return. The Summers family stood nearby, completely shattered but refusing to leave. Celeste clutched her daughter's favorite sweater, as if holding it could somehow keep Nicole alive. That moment hit everyone. This wasn't confusion. This wasn't disobedience. This was a crime. A methodical, silent crime carried out by someone who knew exactly how to move through a city without being noticed. All they had was a car, and a chilling realization. She had made it here. But she didn't leave. The first night of the investigation ended with no answers, only a question that cut deeper with every passing minute. Where is Nicole Summers? Whenever a young woman disappears, the first question investigators ask is cruel but necessary. Who was closest to her, and who might have wanted to hurt her? That's how Julian Thorne found himself at the top of the suspect list. Julian wasn't a stranger to Nicole. He was her ex-boyfriend, a relationship that ended badly just 3 weeks before she vanished. Friends described him as intense, easily jealous, the type who checked her phone a little too often. Nicole ended things because she wanted freedom, something Julian didn't handle well. Detective Vance called him in for questioning immediately. Julian didn't try to hide his anger about the breakup. He even admitted he still loved her too much, according to one officer's notes. But love doesn't erase suspicion. Police tracked Julian's whereabouts on the night Nicole disappeared. He wasn't anywhere near Charleston. Cell tower pings placed him in Huntington, more than 150 miles away. His family confirmed it. Restaurant receipts confirmed it. Security footage confirmed it. Julian had an alibi that held up under pressure. Still, his interview left Vance with a bitter taste, not because Julian was guilty, but because he clearly wished he still had control over Nicole. This lead fizzled out quickly, but it added a frightening question. If the obvious suspect wasn't involved, then who was? A stranger? Someone Nicole never noticed? Or someone she had already pushed away once before? Either way, the real threat wasn't Julian. It was someone even more invisible. While Julian was quickly cleared, another lead refused to sit quietly. Nicole's roommate, Phoebe Wells, couldn't stop replaying a strange encounter from the day before Nicole vanished. It had seemed harmless at the time, forgettable, even until the police asked if anyone suspicious had recently come around. A man had knocked on their apartment door. He said he was a maintenance worker, checking water pressure in the building. But something felt off. His uniform didn't match the ones the complex usually used. It hung awkwardly on his frame, like clothing taken from somewhere it didn't belong. His story came out too fast, as if it was rehearsed. His eyes never stopped scanning not the pipes, but Nicole. Phoebe stepped in front of her friend, blocking the doorway. She told him they weren't having any plumbing issues and closed the door firmly. Nicole brushed it off afterward. She told Phoebe the guy probably had the wrong building. She didn't worry. But Phoebe did. She remembered how the man hesitated before walking away, like he expected Nicole to change her mind, like he wasn't there for pipes at all. Detective Vance checked with the property management company. No one on staff matched that description. No work orders existed for their unit. No subcontractors were scheduled. That man wasn't supposed to be there. In fact, he wasn't supposed to exist at all. Phoebe's skin crawled when she realized it. This wasn't a case of being in the wrong place at the wrong time. Someone chose Nicole. Someone planned to get close. Someone knocked and waited. Tell me something. Comment yes if this maintenance worker sounds guilty already. Your instincts might be better than you think. Detective Vance locked onto the maintenance worker lead immediately. A stranger inserting himself into Nicole's living space, the timing was far too convenient. Officers canvassed the entire apartment complex. They knocked on doors. They showed sketches based on Phoebe's description. Tall, mid-30s, receding hair, uniform that looked borrowed, not earned. Several tenants said they might have seen him. No one could say for sure. Faces blur when you don't realize you should remember them. Vance requested every maintenance record from the property company. No hires fired recently. No temporary workers. No scheduled repairs. No contract changes. Nothing matched. Surrounding buildings? Same results. It was like the man appeared for one reason, and one reason only. Nicole. Police checked employment logs from local janitorial companies, maintenance crews, utility workers, hundreds of names examined. No matches. This lead should have opened a door. Instead, it slammed shut. The man didn't use his real identity. He didn't work where he claimed. He didn't leave a trace behind. And what made it worse? He had a uniform, not a disguise, thrown together in panic. He planned to look official. He planned to earn trust. He planned to get inside. Whatever he wanted to do to Nicole inside that apartment, he didn't get the chance. So he waited. Somewhere she would eventually be alone. A predator doesn't panic when the first attempt fails. He adjusts. He watches. He returns. Day after day, the mysterious maintenance worker remained the best and only lead. Detective Vance pushed every database available. He checked old arrest logs. He checked every false identity complaint in nearby cities. He pushed beyond Charleston's limits, hoping this stranger had messed up somewhere else. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. It didn't feel like a dead end. It felt like a trap laid by someone who knew exactly how to avoid being caught, and that terrified everyone. If a man could knock on a young woman's door with complete confidence, pretend to be someone he wasn't, stare right into her home, and then vanish? Who else had he fooled? It became painfully clear. Nicole's disappearance wasn't random. It wasn't impulsive. It was deliberate. But without a name, without a trace, without even a camera showing his face, police couldn't move forward. Phoebe replayed the moment over and over, wondering if she should have called someone, wondered if she could have stopped it, wondered if that single decision would haunt her forever. The one person who might have known exactly where Nicole was. The one person who might have been there when she vanished. He wasn't supposed to exist. And then the lead vanished. Forensics in 2000 did not belong to the era of miracles. There was no advanced DNA tracing, no high-resolution digital enhancement, no nationwide instant database connectivity. Investigators relied on what they had, and it wasn't much. A partial fingerprint was lifted from the outside doorknob of Nicole's apartment, but too few identifying points meant it couldn't connect to anyone. Not legally. Not confidently. Investigators collected carpet fibers from the parking lot near where Nicole disappeared. The lab analysis came back quickly. Common acrylic. Mass-produced. Sold everywhere. Meaningless on paper. The gas station camera near the route she walked? Grainy. Faces distorted into unrecognizable smudges. The figure in the distance could have been anyone, and that made it equal to nothing. Every piece of evidence felt like a cruel joke. So close to answers, yet completely useless. Detective Vance stared at the board in the operations room, photos of Nicole, maps with red markers tracing every possible step she might have taken. He double-checked each timeline until his eyes burned. If he had missed something, if there was a mistake. No, it all lined up. Perfect in structure. Terrifying in outcome. Nicole walked a short path. Nicole vanished. The clock kept ticking. While Vance was trained for unsolved mysteries, this case sank into his chest heavier than any before. He could feel it. The truth existed. The monster existed. But the tools to catch him weren't there yet. The investigation stalled. The evidence said nothing. The silence screamed everything. And as days turned into weeks, Charleston began to fear those screams would never end. Charleston wasn't big, but it held a big heart, and that heart ached for Nicole. Flyers with her face became part of the city's landscape. Grocery doors, bus stops, classroom boards, lampposts along the Kanawha River. Rain soaked them until the ink bled. Sun faded them until her smile became a ghost. But people never stopped replacing them. Every evening, volunteers gathered with candles, a soft glow against the darkness that swallowed her. Students from the university formed search teams, walking riverbanks in silence, as if noise would scare away the truth. Churches prayed aloud. Families cooked meals for the Summers because they couldn't imagine the hollow nights in that household. Reporters whispered updates no one wanted to hear. Still no leads. They held vigils where Nicole once walked. Hundreds standing together, feeling powerless. Celeste often attended, clutching a small framed photo of her daughter, afraid to let go even for a moment. She looked at strangers holding candles and wondered, how can so many people care and still not find her? Arthur stood a few feet away, trying to stay strong, but every time a search ended without results, he added another invisible weight to his shoulder's weight that would never fully lift. Time moved forward, but hope began dragging behind. Missing person alerts stopped feeling temporary. News coverage quieted. People returned to routines, slowly, reluctantly, but every parent now looked at their child before bed and asked, what if the next person who disappears is mine? Charleston wanted answers. What they got was silence again. Detective Elias Vance never forgot Nicole Summers, not for a second. Cases come and go, files close. New tragedies demand attention. But this one burrowed into him and refused to let go. Every night after his shift, Vance sat alone in his dim office, staring at the board covered in photos and empty answers. He'd run through theories again and again until exhaustion forced him home. Then he'd wake up and do it all over. He missed birthdays. He missed anniversaries. His family tried to understand, but some wounds aren't visible to the people around you. Vance believed there was a simple truth somewhere in the evidence. Something everyone missed because they were blinded by panic. But as months turned into years, that belief began to flicker. Nicole's missing posters started to come down. Volunteers grew tired. News cameras moved on to the next headline. The Summers family was still living the nightmare. They got up every morning in a house that felt too quiet, with a bedroom too full of memories. And Vance? He kept that case file on his desk long after protocol said it should be archived. He knew that whoever took Nicole didn't stop existing. He was still out there, buying groceries, walking past innocent people, pretending life was normal. That thought gnawed at Vance more than anything else. He wasn't losing sleep because the case was cold. He was losing sleep because the predator was warm, blending into the world, untouched. How many times did people pass the person responsible? Greet him? Trust him? Vance couldn't shake one question. If he was right there all along, how did everyone miss him? Years kept passing. Photos aged. But pain didn't. The Summers family tried to hold on to tradition. They decorated the tree. They cooked the same meals Nicole loved. They wrapped gifts she would never open. At Christmas dinner, they set a place for her exactly where she always sat, a ritual that broke their hearts a little more each year. Birthdays were worse. You can pretend a holiday is just another day, but you can't ignore the day someone you love entered the world. Celeste would place a cupcake by Nicole's photo and whisper a wish she'd been repeating for almost 2 decades. Come home. Arthur stayed quieter, not because he felt less, but because speaking the pain out loud would destroy him. He blamed himself every time that chair stared back at him empty. The world moved forward without permission. Technology grew. People forgot. But grief never loosened its grip. Detective Vance retired with unfinished business weighing down his soul. He took Nicole's file home, placing it on a shelf like a promise he refused to break. The case wasn't dead. It was waiting. What no one knew was that history was about to collide with a new era, an era where machines could see what humans couldn't, and forgotten evidence could finally speak. Because sometimes the truth doesn't disappear. It just waits for the right person to find it. 1919 long years since Nicole Summers vanished. The world was different now. Phones recognized faces. Cameras captured details impossible to ignore. Computers could analyze what humans once missed. Charleston police launched a dedicated cold case unit, fueled by a new state initiative demanding answers for families who'd waited too long. And leading this unit was Detective Anya Sharma, a specialist in forensic science, with a reputation for refusing to accept unsolvable. She wasn't weighed down by the original failure. She wasn't haunted by old mistakes. She saw the case the way Nicole deserved, fresh, not forgotten. Sharma gathered the boxes that had sat dormant for almost 2 decades. When she placed them on her desk, it wasn't sadness she felt. It was a challenge. Nicole's photo stood at the center of the board once again, not as a reminder of what was lost, but as a promise of what could finally be found. Sharma called in her team: data analysts, forensic experts, a mapping specialist, and a digital technician who thrived on outdated evidence. Her approach was simple. 19 years ago, this case failed. Technology won't fail us now. Files were scanned, timelines rebuilt, witness statements re-evaluated using advanced cross-referencing. Clues once overlooked roared back to life. The old investigation felt like a locked door, but Sharma walked in with the key no one had back then. Before we push deeper into the breakthrough that changed everything, take a second. Seriously, take a second. We're in this together. Subscribe before the next twist hits you. This story is just getting started, and you don't want to miss what comes next. Because hope wasn't just returning, it was about to strike like lightning. The case file was reborn in a digital world. Every interview transcript, every map, every note scribbled by Detective Vance was scanned and fed into a modern search system capable of spotting patterns humans could never catch. The software highlighted overlaps. Times witnesses passed the same locations. Nicole walked. Vehicles seen near both campus and the apartment. Specific names mentioned more than once, even briefly. Details the original team didn't consider relevant. Sharma watched as lines connected across monitors, forming routes and time windows so precise they felt like a second-by-second reconstruction of Nicole's final evening. Search radius heat maps showed the highest probability zones where Nicole might have been intercepted. Those zones lined up eerily well with the spot near her car, a detail old reports treated like coincidence. Not anymore. Her team reopened the uniform incident reported by Phoebe Wells, now treated as a top priority lead. The maintenance worker, once a dead phantom, re-entered the investigation with urgency. Sharma also red-flagged the two most frustrating pieces of evidence from 2000. The 1 Egra, the partial fingerprint. 2 Waller, the carpet fibers. To the original investigators, they were dead weight. To Sharma, they were time capsules. While analysts worked through the case stack, Sharma asked a simple but terrifying question. If he was bold enough to knock once, what makes us think he didn't try again? The thought sent a cold shift through the room. This wasn't just a case file anymore. It was a living story demanding the final chapter. 19 years of failure didn't matter now. For the first time since Nicole disappeared, the investigation had a pulse. On a shelf in the evidence room, covered in dust and forgotten hope, sat 2 items that once led nowhere. A partial fingerprint and a few acrylic carpet fibers. Tools in 2000 couldn't make sense of them. But in 2019, they became the most dangerous weapons in the case. Sharma knew that even scraps of evidence could hold the entire truth, as long as technology was finally ready to listen. She ordered the fingerprint scanned through enhanced RidgeFlow software capable of rebuilding missing edges and comparing fewer points with extraordinary accuracy. For the first time, the print was no longer just a smudge. It had a form, a pattern, an identity waiting to be recognized. Then came the carpet fibers. The original report dismissed them as too common. But Sharma wasn't convinced. She sent them to a private forensic lab specializing in textile analysis. This time, the results spoke loudly. A rare dye signature, only used in a limited batch of industrial flooring sold to a handful of commercial buyers in the late 90s. That single detail shrank a whole map down to a few buildings and storage locations, places where someone could have worked quietly and watched closely. Not only had the evidence aged, it had matured. It was ready to reveal who had been hiding behind ordinary life for 2 decades. Sharma stared at the updated results, a slow fire rising in her eyes. She didn't need a confession. She needed a match. One match. Because in unsolved crimes, the truth doesn't disappear. It just waits for science to catch up. Nicole's story wasn't buried anymore. It was rising. As the updated evidence processed through modern systems, the cold case unit held its breath. The fingerprint enhancement completed first a swirling reconstruction of ridges and shapes that no longer looked incomplete. A detail that once whispered now shouted. When the system flagged it as a viable match candidate, silence swept over the room. Not a false alarm, not a glitch, a direction. Then, the lab's report on the fibers arrived, the dye exclusive to a few buildings within a defined radius. A trail that no longer wandered aimlessly, but pointed like a compass toward someone who had waited far too long to be exposed. Everything that stalled the case for 19 years, everything that once mocked the original investigation, was now aligning into a single target. Nicole Summers was about to speak again through science. Before we follow the evidence to the name it exposes, do one thing. We're in this together. Subscribe before the next twist hits you. You deserve the truth as much as her family did. Detective Sharma stood in front of the illuminated fingerprint match list. Her eyes locked on the top result. A name that had buried itself in an old, forgotten incident. A name that was never supposed to return. Her pulse climbed. This wasn't just progress. It was the beginning of the end. For the man who thought he got away. The lab report on the carpet fibers arrived in a slim white envelope, nothing flashy on the outside, but inside, the truth that Charleston had waited 19 years to hear was finally unfolding. The analysis confirmed what investigators in 2000 could never prove. These fibers weren't common after all. They contained a specific dye blend used in a limited batch of industrial flooring manufactured in 1998, a batch so small it was only sold to a tiny number of commercial clients in the region. Not homes, not regular office spaces, only special use facilities. Government storage units, low-cost industrial buildings, short-contract janitorial sites. It wasn't a clue anymore. It was a location trap. Sharma ordered a full list of every business and property that purchased that flooring. The list was short enough to fit on a single sheet of paper. For the first time since Nicole disappeared, the investigation didn't feel like searching for a needle in a haystack. It felt like narrowing down the address of the person who stole her future. Detectives cross-checked the timeline. Who had access to those places in 1998? Who worked there late at night? Who lived close enough to follow Nicole's university routine? Boxes that were empty for 20 years suddenly filled with red flags. While the carpet fibers pointed toward a physical space, the fingerprint was about to expose the human one. Investigators had stared at this evidence for almost 2 decades, and now it was staring back with a direction. Nicole's final night wasn't random. It traced back to a specific environment, a specific job, a specific man, and that man had no idea the walls were about to close in. The partial fingerprint from Nicole's doorknob had haunted the original case. It was the one piece of physical contact, the one undeniable sign that someone stood inches from her door before she disappeared. But in 2000, technology saw it as nothing more than an incomplete swirl. Now, it became a voice. Sharma's digital technician fed the enhanced ridge data into the national database, a system now thousands of times more advanced than what existed when Nicole first vanished. As the search processed, pixels shifted and aligned lines filling in where before there had been gaps. The monitor displayed a progress bar slow enough to torture anyone watching. Her team hovered behind the text, silent, breath held. Then, match candidates. 1, not 10, not 3. 1. A single possibility in millions. The name stayed blurred as the system loaded the full profile. Sharma stared without blinking, her pulse pounding in her ears. The match wasn't from a recent arrest. It wasn't from a routine check. It belonged to a decades-old charge in West Virginia, categorized as a break-in attempt from 1998. A case most people forgot. A case that never led to conviction. A case that looked harmless, until now. Nicole's attacker didn't appear out of thin air in 2000. He tested himself 2 years earlier. The tech clicked to expand the details. The screen flickered, loading the photo, the name, and history tied to a man who moved through the world like he was made of smoke, a ghost the justice system once ignored. And now that ghost was stepping back into the light. The fingerprint match pulled up an old, forgotten record from 1998, just 2 years before Nicole vanished. The archive police report described a strange incident outside an apartment building miles from Charleston. A young woman arrived home late. A man in a fake uniform followed her to her door, tried to force his way inside. She fought back and screamed. Neighbors rushed out, and he fled before the police arrived. The victim gave a description. Tall, early 30s at the time, receding hairline, carried a toolbox he didn't seem to know how to use. The officers who responded found a partial fingerprint on her doorframe, but without a suspect. It faded into the background of larger crimes. If only they had known. That wasn't just a break-in attempt. It was a trial run, a preview of what he would try again, with someone who wouldn't have the same luck. Sharma compared sketches from the 1998 report to Phoebe's memory of the maintenance worker at Nicole's apartment. Details aligned with terrifying accuracy. But there was another connection. The location of the 1998 incident fell within walking distance of one of the buildings that purchased that rare industrial flooring. The same flooring linked to the fibers found near Nicole's last known location. Every thread of the case, once scattered and hopeless, was now tightening into a noose around one man. Sharma's team exchanged looks that said everything. This wasn't just a match. This wasn't just a suspect. This was the man they'd been searching for since the night Charleston lost its sense of safety. And his identity was seconds away from filling the screen. Everything pointed to him now. 2 crimes separated by time but identical in method. Same uniform trick. Same target profile. Same obsession with gaining entry where he did not belong. Sharma stepped closer to the monitor as the system finished compiling the full match. The digital technician hit enter with a shaking hand. The screen flashed once. Loading. An old booking photo appeared grainy, aged by the years, but the arrogance in the eyes was unmistakable. Below the image, a name loaded into view. Marcus Hale. A man most people never noticed. A man who blended into the background. A man who had been free for 19 years while a family prayed for answers. Sharma didn't celebrate. She didn't speak. She simply stared at the name that had been buried under dust and apathy, a name that now held Nicole's truth in its grip. With one fingerprint, one fiber, and one forgotten incident, Charleston's ghost was suddenly very real again. Sharma whispered to her team, "We've got him." No one in the room took a breath, because this wasn't just a match, it was a warning. Marcus Hale had succeeded once before. No one knew if Nicole was his only victim, or if others had been swallowed by silence too. The truth was about to explode into the present. A ghost from 1998 was about to return. His name was Darian Cole. If you walked past him in a grocery store, you'd forget his face before reaching the next aisle. If he stood behind you in line for coffee, you wouldn't look twice. He was average height, average build, average personality. A background person, the kind of man who appeared designed to disappear in plain sight. Neighbors described him as quiet, polite, always kept to himself. The kind of guy who waved but never talked. Nobody knew his work history well. People assumed he did maintenance jobs. He always seemed to own a jumpsuit or two. He moved often, enough that no one knew him long enough to question anything. But beneath that ordinary exterior lived a pattern. In 1998, he was stopped and questioned when a woman reported someone in a uniform trying to force her apartment door. He was never charged. There wasn't enough evidence. He faded into the system like smoke. And that small incident? It left a fingerprint. The same fingerprint found on Nicole's doorknob in 2000. It wasn't luck. It was consistency. Cole had tried before. He learned from the failure. He adjusted. And he waited for another chance. For nearly 2 decades, Cole breathed free air while a family suffocated in grief. He ate dinner, paid bills, went to sleep peacefully, all while knowing exactly what he did to Nicole. The worst monsters aren't the ones who hide in shadows. It's the ones who blend into daylight and smile like they've done nothing wrong. Darian Cole never chased success. He chased anonymity. His employment records showed a string of short-term maintenance jobs at various industrial properties, never staying anywhere long enough to form bonds or raise suspicion. But one detail hit the team like a punch. In 1998, he worked at a warehouse where the rare industrial flooring, the exact type tied to the carpet fibers, had been installed. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a map of intent. Cole had access to keys, uniforms, and equipment that helped him blend into residential buildings. His work gave him a believable excuse to wander wherever he wanted, down hallways, through stairwells, onto private property. His background checks were shallow: no spouse, no kids, no close friends, no social media, no personal footprint. He lived in a modest rental home outside Charleston, a place so plain that mail carriers probably forgot it existed. Neighbors would later say, he was normal. Always fixed things around the building if we asked. He walked his dog every night. He seemed lonely, but harmless. But that was the mask. Behind closed doors, he collected junk boxes stacked in corners, old tools, random uniforms, unlabeled keys, a hoarder of things that didn't belong to him, a hoarder of access. He rarely talked to women, but he always watched them. He learned their routines. He studied who lived alone, who walked home at night. He didn't crave attention. He craved control. And for 19 years, he lived comfortably with the belief that he had beaten the world. Not because he was smart, but because everyone else trusted too easily. The evidence was enough. Sharma secured a search warrant for Cole's home, a turning point that had waited 19 painful years. The team approached with caution. Cole stepped outside to smoke, dressed in his usual neutral clothes, staring blankly at the trees, as if he had not a single worry in the world. When detectives surrounded him, he barely reacted. No panic. No confusion. Just a subtle exhale, like a man whose clock had finally struck zero. Sharma stayed focused on the house. Inside, the walls felt like a forgotten storage unit, dust layering piles of junk. But investigators weren't looking for clutter. They were searching for proof. It didn't take long. In the back room, a narrow space with a flickering bulb, hung a faded blue jumpsuit, with a patch that looked like it once carried a maintenance logo. Folded neatly below it was a pair of black work boots, tread worn down but familiar in shape. Then came the discovery that made stomachs drop. A tiny fabric fragment sealed inside a cracked plastic container. The lab later confirmed it was a perfect match to the carpet fiber found near Nicole's last known location. One officer whispered, "He lived quietly among them for 20 years. 20 years. Free. Invisible. Dangerous." Before I continue, answer this. Should monsters this good at hiding ever get parole? Tell us below. Your voice matters more than you know. Cole thought he buried the past. He thought silence would protect him forever. But the truth doesn't rot in the dark. It waits to be dug up, and Cole was about to face every nightmare he created. Cole stood motionless as officers placed cuffs around his wrists. No yelling. No excuses. He looked like a man accepting the end of a long and selfish secret. Word spread through the neighborhood faster than the squad cars could pull away. Residents gathered on porches and sidewalks, staring, whispering, struggling to understand how someone so ordinary could possibly be capable of stealing a young woman's life. Some were furious. "He ate at our cookouts. My kids played outside while he watched." Others were nauseated at the realization they had smiled at him, held the door for him, trusted him. The Summers family received the call they had prayed for every day since 2000. Celeste dropped to her knees, sobbing not out of relief, but from the brutal weight of confrontation. Someone finally took responsibility for their daughter's disappearance. Someone finally had a name. Arthur drove straight to the police station, knuckles white around the steering wheel. He didn't want vengeance. He wanted answers. He wanted to look the person responsible directly in the eyes and ask, "Where is our daughter?" Detective Sharma watched Cole through the glass in the interrogation room. He sat perfectly still, eyes empty like a man rehearsing lies he had told himself for years. For 2 decades, he blended into the world unnoticed. Now the entire city saw him for what he really was. A predator hiding behind politeness. A stranger trusted without question. A quiet monster living right next door. Charleston braced itself. Because while the arrest was victory, the truth about Nicole was still locked inside one man's silence. And that silence was about to be challenged. The interrogation room was a small, silent box, the kind of space where lies suffocate faster than truth. A metal table. 2 chairs. One camera pointed directly at Darian Cole. He stared straight ahead, refusing to acknowledge anyone. His hands were cuffed, but his expression showed no fear, just cold emptiness. Detective Sharma didn't rush inside. She observed him through the glass first. No tapping feet. No restless fingers. No anxious breathing. Just stillness. A predator conserving energy. She entered with confidence, not aggression. She set a thin file down in front of him and took a seat, leaning forward just enough to command attention. "Darian," she said calmly, "you know why you're here." He gave the slightest shake of his head. No words. Just denial through silence. Sharma didn't flinch. She opened the file and laid out 2 photographs. In one Saros, the faded image of the 1998 break, in victim. 2 Waller. The maintenance. Uniform sketch from Nicole's case. Cole's eyes flicked downward, a tiny movement, but enough to show recognition. She spoke slowly, letting each sentence cut deeper. "You followed a woman home once before. You used the same method. Same approach. Same fake identity." Cole clenched his jaw. Sharma didn't smile. She didn't taunt. She simply said, "Patterns don't lie, Darian. People do." Cole swallowed the first physical sign of fear. The walls were starting to tighten. This wasn't just a conversation. It was the beginning of the end of his silence. Sharma slid a glossy sheet across the table, a digitally enhanced fingerprint image with highlighted ridgelines. Cole stared and blinked. Just once, but enough. "This," Sharma said quietly, "came from Nicole's doorknob the night she vanished." Cole kept his hand still, cuffs rattling slightly as his wrists tensed. She placed a second sheet beside the first, a fingerprint from the 1998 police file. The match line flashed bold and undeniable. "Same hand," Sharma continued. "Same man." Cole shifted in his seat, his shoulders tightening like he was shrinking inside his own body. He finally spoke low, cracked, desperate. "I fixed things. I was there to help." His voice betrayed the composure he fought so hard to maintain. You showed up uninvited, Sharma snapped back. You approached women who lived alone. You knocked on doors you had no business touching. He shook his head, not in denial but in frustration that the lies weren't working. Sharma didn't let silence linger. You lost your temper when they didn't let you in. Nicole didn't let you inside. So you waited. You followed. You took her. Cole's breathing grew uneven. She pressed harder. You think this is just a mistake? A misunderstanding? Your fingerprint places you there. Your history exposes you. Your silence convicts you. His lips trembled. A man who hid for 2 decades was finally running out of corners to disappear into. Sharma leaned forward, voice razor sharp. You touched her door. But you didn't stop there, did you? His jaw clenched. A tiny tear formed in his left eye, anger or fear, no one could tell. But the mask? It had cracked. Sharma wasn't finished. She opened a small, clear bag and laid it gently on the table, almost respectfully. Inside was the tiny carpet fragment they found sealed inside Cole's home, the same dye signature as the flooring near where Nicole disappeared. Cole's eyes locked onto it like it was a threat. This, Sharma said, voice low, was found in the dirt beside Nicole's car in 2000. She paused to ensure he understood. And this exact fiber was pulled from a container in your home 19 years later. Cole's breath hitched. His shoulders curled inward, the way a person instinctively protects themselves before a painful blow lands. Sharma leaned closer. You kept it, Darian. You kept a piece of the night she vanished. That wasn't an accident. That was a trophy. He whispered, barely audible. I didn't hurt anyone. Sharma slammed her hand flat on the table, not with anger, but finality. You took an innocent woman from her family, and you never gave her back. Cole shut his eyes as if darkness would erase the evidence in front of him. But guilt doesn't disappear when you close your eyes. It claws harder. She softened her voice, not out of kindness but strategy. You wanted control, but you lost it the second we picked up that fragment. His breathing sped up. He squeezed his hands so tightly his knuckles blanched. Look at me, Darian, Sharma commanded. He didn't. Look at the people you destroyed. Look at the life you stole. He still didn't. So she delivered a dagger straight to the heart of his fear. You will spend the rest of your life in a cell, unless you give Nicole back to her family. She stood. You know what you did. So do we. So does everyone watching this case. As viewers watching, tell us, should someone like this ever walk free again? Comment your answer. Sharma didn't ask another question. She simply said, you can keep lying, but the evidence already told the truth. Cole's silence wasn't confidence anymore. It was collapse. Cole sat trembling, a man whose confidence had dissolved into fear. Every breath turned shaky, every swallow harder than the last. Sharma re-entered the room slowly, giving him time to hear his own heartbeat turning into a judge's gavel inside his chest. She placed Nicole's picture on the table in front of him. You saw her alive, she said, and you saw her last. He shook his head, a final instinct to cling to a lie, but his body betrayed him. His hands shook uncontrollably, cuffs rattling like a warning bell. You followed her, Sharma continued. You waited for the moment she was alone. You dragged her from the world she trusted. You left her parents searching for answers that only you have. Cole couldn't look away from the photograph. His eyes welled again, not remorse, but fear of what was coming next. Sharma softened her tone just enough to slip past his defenses. It's time to tell the truth, Darian. Where is Nicole? He swallowed hard. His voice broke into jagged pieces. I never meant it to go that far. Sharma froze the shift she'd waited hours to hear. Cole's walls were crumbling. He continued, each word a nervous twitch. I was angry. She wouldn't let me in. She pushed me away. I just wanted to talk. Tears spilled now, but sympathy never entered the room. You hurt her, Sharma said flatly, and you kept her from coming home. Cole lowered his head, defeated. His voice dropped to a whisper so faint, the camera barely caught it. I'll take you to her. Sharma didn't move. The weight of those words filled the room like a shockwave. Then Cole looked her dead in the eyes and delivered the line that changed everything. Nicole is still where I left her. For 19 years, Every theory about Nicole's disappearance circled the same painful unknown. But now, inside a cold interview room, the one person who had the answers finally began to speak. Darian Cole wouldn't look at Sharma as he talked, his voice shaky, drifting between excuses and reality. He admitted he followed Nicole the night she left work. He waited outside until she walked past the lot where the moon hid behind clouds. He grabbed her not with a plan, but with rage after being rejected 2 years earlier. She screamed, he muttered. She scratched me. I panicked. Cole said those words like they were minor details, forgetting they shattered entire lives. He forced her into his truck, driving toward the Kanawha State Forest, where the paths grow dark fast after sunset. There, everything ended. He claimed he didn't intend to kill her, but intent means nothing when someone is gone forever. Then came the moment that made Sharma's blood run cold. I buried her off the trail, under a fallen log. I thought, no one would ever find her. He said it like hiding a body was the same as hiding trash. Sharma didn't give him the satisfaction of sympathy. She stood up and signaled the team. We're moving now. Cole was shackled, escorted out, and placed in the back of a cruiser. Every mile toward the forest tightened the knot around his fate. Before we follow the team into those woods, like this video so more cold cases get the attention they deserve. Your support helps stories like Nicole's reach the people who can fight for justice. But tonight, justice wasn't a concept. It was footsteps, flashlights, and a city holding its breath. A convoy of vehicles crept into Kanawha State Forest under a quiet sky. No sirens, no shouting. The night itself felt like it knew why they were there. Cole walked ahead under heavy guard, wrists shackled, chain clinking with every reluctant step. Detective Sharma followed, flashlight beam cutting across the rugged trail. The deeper they went, the darker it became. Trees stood like silent witnesses, holding memories no one wanted to imagine. Officers scanned every inch of the ground. Search dogs sniffed through undergrowth. The crime techs marked disturbed soil, and a drone hovered above the canopy for aerial guidance. Cole slowed near a collapsed log, rotting wood, moss-covered, roots exposed like reaching fingers. Here, he pointed. Just one motion of his chin, ashamed to speak, terrified to stay silent. Sharma stepped forward, voice steady but trembling inside. Start digging. Shovels hit earth. The sound echoed like a heartbeat through the forest. Minutes passed. Then came the moment no one was ready for. A fragment of clothing emerged. Faded, worn, but undeniably real. Every officer froze. The air tightened. The world stopped spinning. And then the recovery team confirmed it. Nicole had been there, waiting for someone to finally bring her home. Some officers bowed their heads. Others turned away, eyes burning with anger. Sharma clenched her fists. She didn't cry, she wouldn't let Cole see even one tear. This wasn't closure. This was confrontation. This was 19 years of horror rising from the dirt. Cole looked down at the ground he once believed would keep his secret forever. He was wrong. Nicole was no longer alone in the dark. News spread faster than any broadcast could capture. Phones buzzed. Social media erupted. People called each other in disbelief. They found her. They brought Nicole home. After 19 years, Charleston finally exhaled. When the Summers family arrived at the morgue, the atmosphere felt heavier than the walls could bear. Celeste walked in first, clutching her rosary so tightly the beads left marks in her skin. Arthur stayed close behind, bracing for a moment that no parent is built for. The medical examiner stepped aside, revealing a small, respectful display, not graphic, not clinical, just what remained of a girl stolen from life too soon. Celeste whispered Nicole's name the way she once whispered bedtime reminders to sleep safe. Her knees buckled. Arthur caught her, but even he couldn't stop his own body from shaking. Every memory, Nicole's laughter, her favorite songs, her dreams of becoming a therapist, all surged forward at once. Detective Sharma stood a few feet away. For the first time since taking the case, tears reached her eyes. She didn't wipe them away. She allowed them to fall, a silent promise that Nicole was finally seen. Outside, people gathered near the station, leaving flowers and handwritten notes. You're home now. We never forgot you. Rest in peace. Grief didn't disappear, but it changed shape from doubt to certainty. From agonizing questions to difficult answers, Celeste asked to speak to the press. Her voice trembled, but her words cut like truth. No family should suffer this long to get their child back. She wasn't just mourning Nicole. She was calling out every unanswered case still trapped in silence. For Charleston, this wasn't the end of a mystery. It was the beginning of accountability. Courtroom seats filled instantly, not just with spectators, but with a community desperate to see accountability delivered. When Darian Cole entered in shackles, no one saw a quiet neighbor anymore. They saw the man who turned Charleston's trust into tragedy. The prosecution laid out everything he tried to bury: Nicole's last known steps, his 1998 attack matching the same pattern, the fingerprint sealing him to her door, the fabric fragment tying him to the abduction site, and finally, his own words admitting he buried her in the forest. Cole kept his head down the entire trial, avoiding every set of eyes that once greeted him with kindness. Only when the Summers family took the stand did he seem to shrink further into himself. Arthur spoke for them, voice raw but unbroken. "She deserved to grow up. She deserved the life you stole. We will never forgive you, but we will never forget her." The jury didn't take long. Guilty, on every count. The judge delivered the sentence with the weight of the entire city behind every word. Life in prison. No possibility of parole. A cheer didn't break out. This wasn't a celebration. It was a release. Celeste pressed her wedding ring to her lips, tears falling this time not from confusion, but from closure that had taken 19 years to earn. Nicole finally had justice, and the man who tried to erase her from memory would finish his days staring at a cell wall. Before we move to the final chapter in Nicole's story, like this video so more cold cases get the attention they deserve. Your engagement helps real families still searching for the truth. Justice wasn't fast. It wasn't easy. But it arrived, and it arrived loud enough for every forgotten case to hear. In the months following the verdict, the Summers family began the difficult process of redefining their lives. Grief didn't vanish, it transformed. Nicole's bedroom was no longer a space frozen in time. It became a place where healing could slowly begin. The posters on the wall stayed. So did the books she planned to finish. But instead of representing the past, they now represented everything she stood for. To honor her dreams of helping others, Celeste and Arthur founded the Nicole Summers Awareness Initiative, a community program dedicated to nighttime safety escorts for students, mental health support for families with missing loved ones, volunteer teams trained to assist search efforts, self-defense workshops across campuses. The program spread quickly beyond Charleston. Universities across the state adopted new safety measures, improved lighting, emergency alert systems, and stricter checks on workers accessing student housing. Nicole's story didn't just end tragedy. It prevented future ones. Every time a student walks home safely because of one of those escorts, every time a parent reunites with a missing child thanks to a coordinated search team, Nicole is there. Her legacy isn't silence. It's protection. It's awareness. It's community refusing to be naive about the dangers that can hide in plain sight. Before we continue with the final message, Nicole never saw the danger right in front of her. Protect yourself. Subscribe now. This isn't just a story. It's a warning, but it's also a reminder of what communities are capable of when they refuse to give up. Nicole's life was stolen, but her impact? It only grows stronger. Charleston will never be the same, and for once, that's a good thing. What happened to Nicole changed how the city protects its people, not through fear but through unity and awareness. Local residents formed watch groups. Students created safe ride networks so no one walks alone late at night. Apartment complexes tightened access policies, no more letting strangers through simply because they wear a uniform. Now, when someone knocks on a door claiming they belong there, people ask questions first. Nicole taught them that caution is an act of love. Every year, a remembrance event is held at the school courtyard, candles lit at dusk. Hundreds gathering in quiet honor. It isn't a memorial of sorrow. It's a promise. No one goes missing without a fight. No case gets ignored. No family is left alone in the dark. Detective Sharma attends those events too. Sometimes she stands in the back, unseen, listening. She doesn't go for recognition. She goes because Nicole's case reminded her and every officer why justice must never wait. Celeste and Arthur often speak to the crowd. Their message is always the same. If something feels wrong, trust that feeling. If someone concerns you, speak up. You are not overreacting. You are surviving. Charleston gained a new kind of strength, the strength to care louder, watch closer, and act faster. Because evil didn't arrive as a threat. It arrived as a quiet man who waved hello. The world doesn't always announce its danger. That's why community matters. That's why vigilance matters. That's why voices matter, especially when something doesn't feel right. Nicole's story left Charleston with one rule engraved into every heart. Look out for each other. Always. Nicole's smile is still everywhere, in photos kept alive on bedside tables, in yearbooks signed with inside jokes, and in the stories her friends tell when they talk about the girl who always cared too much. Even after losing her, her kindness continues to save others. Celeste keeps a framed picture of Nicole at the foundation's office, a candid snapshot where her hair is slightly messy from the wind, her grin wide and real. That's the version of Nicole everyone fights for. The version the world deserved to keep. Arthur visits her memorial stone every Sunday, not because he's stuck in the past, but because love doesn't stop when life does. He thanks her for the strength she gave them to finish this battle. He thanks her for guiding justice, even when the world lost the path. Nicole's story could have been another cold case gathering dust. But love refused to let her disappear. And that love now protects thousands. Before we close her chapter, listen closely. Nicole never saw the danger right in front of her. Protect yourself. Subscribe now. This isn't fear. This is survival. And if you've watched all the way here and still haven't subscribed, if you're still not subscribing, why? Comment your reason. We want to understand. Every comment helps push these stories further to the people who need to hear them. As the screen fades, we see that photo again. Nicole smiling, carefree, alive, reminding us that a single moment of trust cost her everything. But her legacy will never be silence again.